Hello, hello, Mike and Kim. How are you doing today?
Good.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us. We'll let some attendees get on here before we get fully started, but thanks to those who are trickling in early or on time, I should say.
Yes.
Appreciate your spending your afternoon with us. At least a little portion of it. Wait, how long is this thing again? No. All right. Well, welcome everyone to the finale in our 2023 Outlook and To-Dos series. Today's webinar, we're going to focus on corporate meetings. So thank you very much for attending. We've had the opportunity over the last, I would say, 6 weeks to grace your computer screens twice already with our To-Do series in Outlook, including our channel incentives and our incentive travel webinars. So if you happen to miss those and you're interested in the topics, we are going to put those links in the chat here, but we'll also put those in the PowerPoint slide that we'll send out afterwards. So take a look at those on our YouTube channel. Today, Rachel Butts, I'll be your host. I am our Director of Marketing and Solution Design here at Brightspot. And joining me is our Bright panel of Mike May, who is our Brightspot President and former Chairman of the IRF, the Incentive Research Foundation. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
And Kim Dirks, one of our Directors of Events here at Brightspot, who has vast meetings knowledge both at Brightspot and beyond. So welcome, Mike and Kim. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
We're going to ask for audience participation in a poll here in a little bit, but if you ever have any more Q&A throughout the session, feel free to go ahead and hit that Q&A button at the top or bottom of your screen and send us some questions. We'll get to those at the end. But first of all, we'll go ahead and launch this poll for you. So for your 2023 meetings budget, would you say that your budgets are being reduced, there's no change, or anywhere from 5, 10, or 15% more? Let's go ahead and launch that. We'll give everyone a few seconds to submit your answers. Bring in some Jeopardy music though, I feel like. All right, everybody in. We'll go ahead and share our results. What does our esteemed panelists think the answers might be? Any guesses?
Oh, I'm going with no change.
I'm going with one of the ups.
Okay, all right. Well, Kim, you are correct this time around. Congratulations. It looks like most people are seeing no change in their budgets, followed neck and neck with reduced or up to 5% change. So I'm sure we'll have a lot more to say about that during our presentation today.
Rachel, that was fascinating because I would not have guessed that the reduced would be up that much, which may speak to the macroeconomic environment. But anytime we watch business news, it alternates between discussions of inflation or will we hit a recession. And inflation is definitely here. Recession still got a question mark, but it looks like possibly some companies are making the decision to reduce. And I know many of our clients are in the tech space. So, it may show a little bit of bias where I think tech companies are pulling back a little bit more than kind of mainstream companies that are doing business on Main Street or wholesaling business, construction supplies or other types of manufacturers. But yeah, we'll have to keep a mental reference on that because we're going to cover cost increases that are actually going up faster than the budgets. So very interesting. I
agree. Should lead to some interesting to-dos. What do we say? You want to take it away, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the biggest to-dos, and we start with it first out of the gate, is the importance we are seeing in uniting remote teams. And as you see on the slide, the bold words, we've gone through a series of COVID isolation over 2 and 3 years ago. And then even in the last year, remote working has increased much more. So C-suite executives are realizing that their relationships among employees have cooled. And I love this quote that one of those executives said to me along the way, but just saying that people are squabbling about petty issues because those personal bonds are not as strong as they've been in the past. And it's so true. It was just interesting to hear somebody say that. So we are very definitely seeing an interest in getting people together, whether that's large meetings like sales kickoffs or smaller informal team meetings or QBRs in the way of quarterly business reviews. But management just sees the value of getting people together. So our to-do is reacquaint with what we call F2F, that stands for face-to-face. So just getting face-to-face together, whether you want to launch new goals, new initiatives, train, just to build those bonds.
I couldn't agree more. Kim?
All right. Yes, piggybacking off of Mike's to-do, our next to-do is focused on expanding networking opportunities. So, like Mike just said, the face-to-face aspect of this post-COVID world and meetings is so important. People are excited to be together. You're still seeing people at meetings craving that peer-to-peer, connection with their colleagues or reconnection with those who, they haven't seen in a couple of years and or who they no longer work with because of the remote workforce nowadays. So I think that networking is profoundly important and needs to be strongly considered when planning your meeting structure. To do that, BrightSpot really recommends looking for ways to shorten your meetings or your sessions and expand networking, maybe with your breaks. So, look for opportunities to accelerate your content, get people in, get them the information that they need, and allow them a little bit more time to engage and to connect together during their breaks. This also allows them a minute to check their emails, make that phone call they need to make, address those things that are keeping them from staying super focused on the content at hand when they're in a meeting and when they're in a session. And that way, when they come back to the next meeting or the next session, they are ready to focus and retain the content that you're prepared to deliver. So the to-do on this one: accelerate content, shorten sessions, and expand breaks.
I love that one. We called it expand networking, which sounds like external meetings, but internally, I think we could have even said expand interaction. And just on this slide, or even the one I covered previously, what we know is relationships lead to retention. And in other webinars, we talked a lot about the importance of talent. So I think both of these slides address fostering that interaction to help with retention.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, so the next one ties to our survey audience poll, and that is budget busting. This I fear will be the year of budget busting. And we've come up with a little slogan here at BrightSpot that we call 30-20-10. And that stands for 30% increases in airfares, 20% increase in hotel costs, and 10% in food and beverage. And, while all those are generalizations, that's about where the benchmarks are. I think there's a chance we're on the front end of seeing airfares decline a little bit as new equipment rolls out that's been back ordered, as pilot shortages get alleviated, and then also as fuel costs come down a little bit. But that's probably the only one that might pull back at any point. I think hotel and food costs are going to be higher than in the past forevermore. Certainly some of that is inflation. Hotel is also driven by not just price inflation, but labor cost increases, and then also what we call a compression in demand. There's been a big surge in demand as companies are getting back out and meeting face-to-face, but also leisure travel has increased, and now transient business travel is also slowly increasing. So our to-do here is to get more budget or cut one of 3 Bs: breakfast, breaks, or bar. So I think this is going to be a big issue. It's going to really creep up on us during the course of this year. And
we can already see it for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, again, just piggybacking off the slide that Mike just talked about, the 30-20-10, you know, we work really hard, and we are going to be working very hard this next year to be very mindful when helping our clients look for cost savings opportunities. So I think that takes us to our next to-do, which addresses rethinking attendees. You know, we need to be those consultants. We strive to be those consultants for our clients who can help them look for solutions that will, you know, mitigate the 30-20-10 increases without impacting the overall program agenda for the meeting. I know when we're looking for cost savings, the immediate front runners are always, hey, how can we reduce, you know, by looking at food and beverage? You know, do we take a bar package from a full bar to beer and wine? Do we take a plate of dinner to a buffet? But really, given the extent of what we are anticipating for budget increases this year, those aren't going to get you there. We can look at a reduction in a day or cutting program inclusions, but really that can ultimately impact the meeting objectives and the overall point of the meeting. So, you know, Brightspot really recommends rethinking the attendees. You know, look at whether or not you need to consider a reduction in headcount, rethink what departments or what geographies or which teams are being invited to this meeting, and make sure that those who are there really make sense for the purpose of the meeting. You know, we just at Brightspot, you know, we just recently had a client at a software company who, you know, was having an SKO for their field salespeople or for their sales team, and ultimately decided to bring their field salespeople to the conference, but not to include the BDRs. You know, that's a hard decision, but probably the right one. So our to-do on this slide for rethinking attendees is to be prepared to make the hard decisions.
Yeah. As you said, we used to get cute and you could cut corners by, you know, trimming some food costs, but these increases are so large, you just can't make little tweaks and get there. And I love that story about that software client, because that's exactly what they did. They wrestled with who really most needed to be in the room.
Yep.
Let's see, next up. You know, this one, this one's more of a trend that's being forced upon us, and it's what we call second cities and second choices. And that really represents looking at second tier cities instead of first tier cities. And, you know, well, first of all, the cause, you know, I used this word compression earlier, and in Q1 and Q2 of this year, a lot of the popular destinations for meetings has been sold out. And, you know, SKOs this time of year, or big management kickoff meetings, tend to bring bigger groups of people that need larger blocks of room, so it can be harder to get space. But as an example, you know, once upon a time, Austin was a second tier city, but it's grown into a hot first tier city. And it's been difficult to find space there. So the slide would suggest look at San Antonio or Houston. Brightspot is based in Dallas, and it seems like a number of clients have come here this year also, because while Dallas is a first tier city, there's so much product and such great international airport and central location that it helps drive down the costs. Or there in the middle of the US, Nashville has been a real hot city for the last 3 years, but it's been hard to get into. So instead, we're seeing companies looking at places like Indianapolis, Louisville, or Memphis. And I think, you know, going to a new city can offer a new experience for the attendees. I think most of us that travel for business realize the first time we go to a city, it's kind of interesting to see a new place. Second or third or fourth time, it's like, you know, been there, done that. So second tier cities can offer something. But then the other trend we're seeing is also being forced to look at second choices. So maybe if your company has traditionally looked at these brands like Hyatt, Marriott, or Westin, and that was your go-to brand, now maybe those are sold out in your preferred city, and it's time to look at a second choice, whether it's something like Intercontinental or Hilton, or even on the far right, we put in this logo. I'm not real sure even from our creative types what it represents. It looks like a cross between
as generic as it can get, because we don't want to call anyone out.
Okay.
We love all of our hotel partners.
Well, I like it. Well, it's yeah, it looks a bit like a video game character or a spider. But boutique hotels is something that are really popular because, you know, again, it's something that maybe the team hasn't gone to. Now, it's probably hard to find a boutique hotel that can handle 500 attendees. But if your meeting's got 50, 100, 200, a boutique hotel may offer something completely new. And as we say in our to-do, a new place can promote new thinking. And the to-do is also just to be flexible because it's what's being forced on us. And in addition to this, probably the other one we would suggest is being flexible on dates. If you can look at shifting what out a week or back a week, or shifting even the days within a week, that may help.
I agree.
Oh, Kim, this one's
Oh boy.
for you, right?
Yeah, this is a fun one. Yeah, I think, you know, we're seeing in a post-COVID world, nowadays, you know, it's no secret that hotels are short-staffed and that they're undertrained. It's no secret that hotels had mass layoffs and furloughs on their frontline staff, and, you know, specifically in housekeeping and catering, but really across the board. And as travel has rebounded to, you know, pretty much 100%, hotels have really rebounded to roughly 80% of their staffing. And not just that, but once they've hired their staff back, or they've hired new staff, really, they have to train them, they have to onboard them, they have to get them set up for success. That takes time and can be painful for planners and for clients. There's actually a survey that came out recently from the American Hotel and Lodging Association that says that 87%, that's a huge number, 87% of hotels are experiencing a staffing shortage right now, and 36% of those severely so. So, you know, the unfortunate irony of all of this is clients still have pre-COVID service level expectations, but hotel room rates have jumped significantly, but hotel service levels, you know, just are not back to pre-COVID levels. So, you know, based on all of this, Brightspot really recommends that this year, we encourage our clients to focus on simplification. You know, let's not go overboard on trying to implement, you know, extremely creative solutions or service expectations. You know, some of the ways we might recommend doing that are looking at, you know, dietary needs, for example, which is, of course, a huge conversation topic for all of us in the world of events nowadays. But rather than trying to put together, you know, very specific, individualized, custom menus for each of our guests and attendees who have specific dietary restrictions, let's look for menus across the board that can accommodate, you know, 95% of those off the bat. You know, let's have radical candor conversations with our hotel partners about their capabilities. You know, let's be mindful that when we're asking them to shake up their standard processes, you know, a lot of their team have just gotten their feet under them with those processes. So asking them to shake them up right now, you know, they may not be able to execute as successfully as they would ultimately like, or as we would ultimately like. So, you know, I know we just recently had a program where we were at, you know, a top tier hotel, and the hotel really struggled with, specifically, they were understaffed on their banquets team. I mean, they just were. And, you know, we have, you know, 400 people at an event, and we can't keep the tables bussed and, you know, as quickly as we would like, you know. So, you know, our team is in there helping out. You know, we're going to do what we can to make sure that the client is ultimately happy. But this is just a key example of where we're seeing some pain points as a result of this. So I think our to-do here is simplify your meetings, simplify your catering. Let's do it well and let's do it right.
Also,
Excellent. Excellent. So our next one is a trend or outlook towards attendee-driven content. And what we see is, the younger generations, the millennials, desire greater interaction. And in general, people are pushing back away from the one-way death by PowerPoint delivery of content throughout the meeting. So I saw this quote from one of our friendly competitors that said, events used to be done to you, then they were done for you, now they're done with you, but the real challenge in the future is that they will be done by you, the attendee. So looking for ways to try to add greater collaboration, add greater audience interaction, adding Q&A, maybe polls like we had there, and then let the audience react to that. Maybe, breakout sessions where people can discuss how to implement content that was presented in a general session, and even allowing some flexibility in the schedule as to timing and sessions in case there is good interaction occurring in one session, allowing the breathing room, as Kim said earlier, to maybe let that session go a little longer or end a little sooner if it needs to. So just looking for ways to promote that group interaction. And we say, seek the attendee input before, which might be in the way of a survey, as well as during the course of the meeting. During the course of the meeting will be hard to do, but I think it's important that speakers and content generators try to do that. Let's see, the next one here has kind of been a hot topic. So hybrid is a word that means both virtual meetings delivered online as well as in-person face-to-face. So it's hybrid, which is a combination of both. And what we're seeing is that it gets a buzz, but it's not really getting budget funding to deliver in that way. And here's kind of the way the dialogue goes down is people say in the beginning, and we've heard it a lot in our space, hybrid is going to be here forever. It's going to stick around forever now that people have gotten a taste for it. But when clients ask, when companies ask, okay, what does it cost? People like Kim and I and Rachel say, well, AV is going to be double. It's like running two parallel productions to the meeting. So your cost is going to be greater. The reaction is, let's skip it then. So while people think it's going to stick around, that sounds good in theory, but unfortunately that lower cost bugaboo is going to drive people, I think, to not implement a hybrid. We're not seeing it hardly at all this year that I can think of. And, however, there may be ways to compromise in the middle and do something like record the CEO's keynote, do a quick turnaround on edit within maybe 4 hours, and then rebroadcast it. Whether that's the same day or the next day, or, that works really well also if you've got a global audience that's in different time zones. But that may be a way to extend the reach of the meeting and include others that aren't physically in the room, but doing it in a cost-effective manner rather than trying to run two parallel teams, because the need to deliver content online is different than how you would do it physically face-to-face.
Well said. Ooh, and sustainability.
Sustainability. So 2 slides ago, Mike talked a little bit about, keeping the attendee, what the attendee wants and what the attendee needs, at top of mind when planning our meetings. IRF actually just reported in a recent study that sustainability is not just a passionate topic for our millennial attendees, which we all know that it is, but that it is a passionate topic for our CEOs nowadays, for our planners, for really, so many people who are involved in the meeting. And so sustainability needs to be, part of the conversation. Some of where we get hung up with sustainability is that a lot of times sustainability opportunities come at a cost. And, as we saw at the beginning of this webinar, most budgets are coming in at or less than, or at or reduced from where they were at previously. So they're not accounting for increased costs as a result of sustainability opportunities. So when that happens, we need to really look for options with lower or zero costs. Brightspot would recommend that you reach out to your partners, reach out to your hotel partners, reach out to your, if you have a transportation partner, if you have, if you're taking everybody off site to do an offsite event as part of the meeting, reach out to these partners and ask them what sustainability practices do they have in place that they are implementing, and communicate to your attendees that you are doing business with, green friendly partners. I mean, that is a no cost, solution to get the ball rolling on implementing sustainability into your meeting. We actually have a client as well that implemented a huge sustainability program within their business, and did just that last year as part of their global team meeting. They reached out to the hotels and they provided communication via a program app, and in fact reduced centerpieces at one of their events to include like cards that kind of talked about the sustainability practices that they were implementing, or that our partners were implementing, as part of the program. So looking for different ways to implement and communicate that at a low cost is really important. If you have money, easy ways to do it are, adding an app, cutting out on print and adding an app is fantastic. It also speaks to our tech savvy millennial audience, or maybe even giving reusable water bottles. So the to-do on this one, do what you can to be good environmental citizen. Even a little bit goes a long way.
Hey, Kim, have you ever met anybody that liked a paper straw?
I hate a paper straw. Although I was at a property recently where I feel like they did like a bamboo straw, and
I'm
that
all about the
was
bamboo.
tolerable. So I think we're working through options, but
All right. Well, let's see. Our final outlook item is be a quick one. In our news today, every time we turn on the TV or read anything, we hear a lot about diversity, DEI initiatives, but there's a different kind of diversity in the marketplace that is not race, not ethnicity, not gender, not religion, and that is generational diversity. And we saw this study, which I thought was just really impactful on maybe a kind of a practical implementation of diversity. And that is that 89% of people agree that generational diversity in the workplace is something positive. We hear diversity is our strength, but I think here with generational, the younger generation can learn from the older can learn from the younger. We all have something we can learn from each other. And it's particularly important when we think about delivering a meeting that we deliver to the middle of the bell curve of who the target audience is. So our to-do here would be think outside of your personal age box and think what's going to resonate with your audience.
Absolutely. That fresh perspective all around, it seems, is a big trend as well. So awesome. Well, thank you. I know we are running short on time, so if you do have any questions, please go ahead and fill those out in the Q&A box here. As you do that, we'll run through a couple of good resources that we have at Brightspot. The first one is our Complete Guide to Sales Kickoffs ebook, as well as our Corporate Event Planning Budget Calculator, which is really fun. If you have questions about what your budget may or may not be, you can go on there and plug in some of your details, and it'll send you an estimate for your next corporate meeting. So we will send the links in the chat as well as in the PDF after the webinar, but check those out. And we do have a couple of questions coming in, especially about apps. I know, Kim, you had already touched on those, but the first one is, A, do you recommend incorporating in an app or investing in an app to encourage attendee interaction? And then if so, does Brightspot offer this as pre-planning or on-site logistics services?
I mean, I'm happy to speak to this one, Mike. I mean, yes, we absolutely offer it. And yes, we absolutely encourage it. It does come at a cost. So I think, that depends on, if the clients see the value, but we certainly do. It's a fantastic way to cut down on print. It's a fantastic way to encourage, the networking. Going back to networking, you can encourage networking through the app as well. And it's a wonderful way to keep attendees up to date on, are there changes? Are there scheduled that you can communicate? You can do push notifications. I mean, there's so much we can do with a program app and so many ways that we can enhance a program. I would strongly recommend it if you can find it in your budget to include it.
Yeah, I think especially if you forego a lot of paper materials, and you can also use it much as we did today for polling that fosters that attendee-driven content and interaction. And another key to do is to make sure it interacts with the website, so you can feed all of the information back and forth from the registration site into the app. But yeah, definitely they move beyond cool to must have.
Yeah, agreed.
Awesome. And with that, we have our brief recap here.
Yeah, good. Well, so to summarize, the outlook and the to-dos we're seeing is the importance of uniting remote teams, knowing that relationships drives retention as well as engagement. Expanding networking, or we use the word interaction. Remember our 30-20-10 talking point to fight against budget busting. Rethink what attendees and invitees will be in the room. Be flexible to consider second-tier cities and second choices. As Kim shared, realize that hotels are short-staffed and undertrained and operating at 80%, so simplify. Try real hard to create attendee-driven content and let them drive the meeting so that we're serving the audience. And, both hybrid and sustainability, they're getting buzz, but not much dollars. And then the last is generational diversity in the marketplace. So thank you so much for attending. We're really honored that you'd share some of your time. In the next 24 hours, we'll be emailing out slides as well as a recording if you missed part of this and want to listen to it on your commute or treadmill exercise routine. And as well as probably next week, I bet we'll be posting a blog that gives greater narration to all these points as well. So thank you so much. We're honored that you shared your time with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Bye.
Bye.